When a strain gets famous, everybody rushes to grow it. But here is something most people don't know about the most famous strain family of all time. OG Kush doesn't really exist as one single plant. The real thing only survives as a handful of legendary cuts, living clippings passed hand to hand between growers for almost 30 years, each with its own name and its own reputation. And out of all of them, one cut, pulled from the mountains around a lake in California, earned a reputation as the strongest, heaviest, most dialed-in version of OG Kush ever grown. This is the story of Tahoe OG. Now, to understand what makes Tahoe OG special, you first have to understand the plant it comes from. Because Tahoe OG isn't a cross of two different strains, it is OG Kush, just a very specific version of it. And if you've seen our Bubba Kush video, you already know how this story starts. Back in the mid-1990s, a Florida grower named Matt Bubba Berger was holding a special cut his friends had nicknamed Kush. And in 1996, the same year California legalized medical marijuana under Proposition 215, he flew it out to Los Angeles, smuggled in a rollerblade boot to grow with his buddy Josh D. Some old heads call that original Florida cut Triangle Kush, the plant that started it all before it ever touched California soil. The story goes that only one of those Kush cuttings survived the trip, and that single surviving plant became the mother of OG Kush, the strain that took over Los Angeles, hit prices up around $8,000 a pound, and became the king of West Coast weed. And real quick, since people always ask, nobody can even fully agree on what the OG stands for. Some say original gangster, tying it to the LA rap scene that loved it. Some swear it means ocean grown, though a lot of old heads call that story made up. And the guy who was actually there, Josh D., says it simply meant original, to separate the real cut from all the fakes calling themselves Kush. That debate has never been settled, and honestly, it probably never will be. And while nobody knows OG Kush's exact parents for sure, most growers trace it back to Chemdog crossed with some kind of Hindu Kush or lemon Thai. That Chemdog lineage is where a lot of the gas and fuel character comes from, and the Hindu Kush brings that heavy indica backbone that OG lovers know so well. Nobody's ever proven it with a lab test, but that's the genetic story that holds up best among the people who were actually around. But here's the detail that matters most for our story. OG Kush is what's called a clone-only strain. It was never turned into a stable seed line you could just buy, so the only way to have the real thing was to get a live cutting from somebody who already had it. And as those cuttings spread across California through the late 90s and 2000s, something interesting happened. Different growers in different places ended up with slightly different versions of the plant, and the standout ones got their own names, usually after a place or a person. The San Fernando Valley had the SFV OG. A grower named Ghost had the Ghost OG. Orange County gave us Larry OG. And up in the mountains, near the border of California and Nevada, was the cut this whole video is about, the Tahoe OG, named after Lake Tahoe. Together, these cuts became a kind of royal family of weed, genetically brothers, but each with its own personality, and stoners have argued about which one is best ever since. So where did the Tahoe cut actually come from? And here's where I've got to be straight with you, because the origin is genuinely murky, and one popular version of it doesn't even hold up. If you look around dispensary websites, a lot of them credit a mysterious breeder called the Ganja Guru with creating Tahoe OG near the lake back in the 1980s. But that story has a giant problem. OG Kush itself didn't exist until the early 90s, so a cut of it couldn't have been created in the 80s. That date is flat out impossible, which tells you that the story is marketing, not history. The version that actually holds up goes like this. Sometime in the late 90s, a grower in the Lake Tahoe area ended up holding an exceptional OG plant, a cut that grew heavier, frostier, and stronger than the OGs everybody knew down south. That grower eventually entrusted the cut to a breeder from the San Fernando Valley named Swerve, who started spreading the elite OG cuts to medical growers in the early 2000s, and later, through his seed company Cali Connection, released Tahoe OG to the world in seed form. Some old-timers even argue Swerve is the one who really put the Tahoe name on the map in the first place. So while nobody can hand you a clean birth certificate for this plant, the trail runs from a mystery grower near the lake, through Swerve's hands, out to the entire world. And once the world got hold of it, Tahoe earned its reputation the honest way, by absolutely flattening people. Because every OG cut hits hard, but Tahoe became known as the heavy one, the knockout artist of the family. It usually tests somewhere in the low to mid-20s for THC, but the numbers don't tell the story, the speed does. Tahoe comes on almost instantly, starting with a rush of euphoria in the head, and then it drops this thick, warm, full-body melt on you that pins you right where you're sitting. That 1-2 punch is a textbook example of the entourage effect, where the terpenes and cannabinoids work together to create something stronger than any single compound could on its own. Smokers have called it the NyQuil of weed, and it became famous as maybe the single best strain on earth for insomnia, the thing you smoke when you genuinely need to be unconscious in an hour. It's the definition of a nighttime smoke, and even seasoned OG lovers learned to respect what it does. And it doesn't just hit like the perfect OG, it tastes like it too, which is the other half of why people call it the perfected cut. Everything people love about the OG flavor shows up in Tahoe, turned up a notch. You get that sharp lemon up front from the limonene, fresh pine underneath, and then that deep, earthy, fuel-soaked gas that OG Kush made famous, which is the myrcene and beta-caryophyllene doing their thing, all wrapped in dense, chunky buds, absolutely frosted in resin. That heavy resin made it a favorite for making hash, and concentrates too, and it even racked up hardware, with Cali Connection's Tahoe taking podium spots at the Amsterdam Cannabis Cup in 2011, including a first-place win for Tahoe OG wax. Now, I'll be fair with you, calling any one cut the best OG is fighting words, because the SFV lovers will tell you theirs has the better lemon, and the ghost crowd swears theirs is the most balanced. Best is always going to come down to taste. But here's the thing, when people picture what an OG is supposed to do, that heavy, gassy, glue you to the couch experience, Tahoe is the cut that delivers it harder than any of its brothers. It didn't reinvent OG Kush. It perfected what OG Kush was already trying to be. And that's exactly why the title fits. And that reputation gave Tahoe a legacy that's still going strong till this day. Through the 2010s, it was a staple on dispensary menus all over the West Coast and beyond. Always sitting in the nighttime section, always priced like it meant business. Its genetics got passed down into new legends too, most famously Alien OG, a cross between Tahoe OG and Alien Kush that became a star in its own right, carrying that same heavy resin and knockout effect into a whole new generation of smokers, plus a long list of OG hybrids that carry its blood. And to this day, you will still find Tahoe OG alive and well in flower, vapes, and extracts, decades after some unknown grower first found it in the mountains. So at the end of the day, Tahoe OG is the perfect example of the strangest, coolest thing about weed culture. The idea that the cut matters. Same strain, same family, but one specific plant, found by one grower near one lake, turned out just a little heavier, a little frostier, and a little more perfect than all its brothers, and that tiny difference made it a legend. It took the king of West Coast weed and sharpened it into its final form.